Is just have a meditation now, and then if anyone has questions, I will be happy to try and answer them after the meditation. So please work deep inside. You know, I probably sat through 2,000 lectures that Rudy gave. You know, I can't remember one word in my head, but everything he ever said is inside me, and it always comes up when I need it. So just open, take everything in as energy. Shakti, you know, don't think about it, try to analyze it, figure it out. You'll just make yourself crazy. Because that's all it is, you know, it's all just, everything is energy. And we have to be able to absorb that energy and use it to develop a chakra system in ourselves in connection with God, higher energy. So please try and work deeply. We'll have a meditation class. I've unmuted everyone, and if anyone has a question they would like to ask, I'd be happy to try and answer. Listen, I think your name is Eva. Eva, if you're here, you have to be, you know, look, you have to be doing the meditation. And I have to be able to see you in the class, or the class is not going to work. So, you know, you've been here twice, and both times you don't, I have to be able to see you.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, otherwise it's not going to work. I mean, all I see is your name.
Okay.
And it's a nice name, but it's not enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have a question they would like to ask? You know, early on when I was doing Rudy's work, there was such a deep part of me that wanted to teach it, you know, and it was, you know, almost not even a healthy part of me that wanted to teach it. It probably had a lot to do with ego, position. And you know, eventually when I became a teacher of this work, the first thing that Rudy told me right after the meditation class in Big Indian, I mean, you know, for those of you who don't know it, Rudy used to like to play poker. And in the middle of a poker game, he hit me in the ribs and said, "How would you like to teach the meditation today?" And I started to chuckle. I said, "You know, you always do this to me, Rudy." And the meditation was in 15 minutes, and there was probably 60 to 100 people sitting in the waiting for Rudy. And I sat down to teach the class. And it was very interesting because I had no idea what I was doing. And it was just, you know, going through it, trying to surrender as deeply as I possibly could, opening as deeply as I possibly could. And I remember after the class, I mean, Rudy was probably a lot happier than I was. He was just thrilled that he was able to begin to pass his teachings on to not only myself, but to other people. And he said to me, he said, you know, next year at Big Indian, first I'll teach, then you'll teach, and then we'll show cartoons. And it was an incredible teaching for me to think that if I let my ego get involved in all of this, if I let Stuart do this, I could be replaced by Bugs Bunny. And it was a constant reminder to me, Stuart, you have to go deep enough inside yourself to surrender to such a depth that, you know, that the universe, God, higher energy is truly teaching the class. And it took a long time to learn how to do this. It really did. It's not something that you learn in a day and a half. But the starting point was the thought that I could be replaced by Bugs Bunny, by the Roadrunner. You know, we can show a cartoon instead of you, you know, and it was Rudy just telling me, you know, what it's about is total surrender. You know, it's not about having a position. It's not about being better than anybody else. That same summer, I'll never forget it. He told me, he was sitting and we were listening to Muktananda give a talk about, how the guru has to be worshipped as God, And I'll never forget, Rudy was sitting right behind me and he whispered in my ear, he said, the best a guru can be is the servant of God and the servant of his students. And again, it was telling me what it means to be a transmitter of God's energy, that you never think you're better than anyone else. You're at the best, you're the servant of the people that come to you. You're the servant of a higher force of energy in the universe. And it was it took years for me to truly learn how to do this organically, how to get past me and to be just a transmitter of spiritual energy. And then it took years for me to learn that it's not so important to be a teacher of this meditation. A lot of people want that. What's important is to grow organically, connect with God, have your dialogue with God, and allow the universe to tell you how you will transmit spiritual energy to other people. I mean, approaching it that way requires great depth of surrender. It requires not having any image in your head about what you want to be other than a servant of higher energy in the universe. And that will happen organically as the chakra system develops, as we build inside ourselves a connection with spirit, and we have the strength to truly be a transmitter of Shakti. How it goes to other people, how it's transmitted, one will find out. And I think that this is a very important thing to learn. And I must admit, it took me years to learn this, how to get free of me and to ever think that I am in a position of importance, how to be in a state of surrender when I sit and do this, not only when I do this class, whatever you do, when I go to the grocery store, when I go to the supermarket, when how to do everything in life in a state of surrender, so that life itself becomes the guru. Life itself becomes this teacher that is showing us constantly what we need to do to continue to grow spiritually. I mean, that is serving higher energy in the universe. And how it is transmitted through people, it's not for me to determine. It's not for me to make people teachers. I used to do this years ago. And 80% of the people I made teachers honestly became a royal pain in my ass. It's for me to just nurture people and they will find their way. My job, as I say, it's a Kundalini aerobics instructor, how to help people to develop the chakra system so that they will find their path, whatever their path happens to be. Not something in their brain, not something that gives them a position in life, but truly a servant of higher energy in the universe, of God, through surrender, through depth, through having developed a system inside that enables one to do that. I mean, this is really a very important thing to learn. And I must admit to you all, it took me years to learn this. I didn't know this many years ago. It just took years of evolving to a place in myself of such deep surrender that it enabled me to realize how essential it is to not be a teacher, to not be anything, but to allow oneself to be a transmitter of God's energy. And for some reason, in this karma of mine, it's transmitted this way, like these classes that we have here. And I'd be, very happy if anyone grows to the point where they can do this. But it's not my job to tell people that this is the only way to do it. There are many ways. There are many different methods of teaching. And I think that is an essential thing for all of us to learn, and to let people find their way. I mean, honestly, in my life, I've never interfered with anybody trying to find their way. Some people I didn't want to have to hang out with and be with, but it was for their life. It was their way of finding themselves. And I never interfered with it. It wasn't my business, And I think it's amazing how simple the whole thing is. We complicate it because of ego, mind, tension, thoughts, what we want to be, worse than that, who we think we are, who we really think we are, how important we are, and the whole point of it is to be nothing. I'm reading this book, which is very interesting. It's not a well-written book, and it's very hard for me to read because the writer is not a terribly good writer, but it's about somebody who was extraordinary in her lifetime. It was extraordinary. And she was truly a servant of God. And she did it not in her way, but in the way that just came through her. Amazing being, Again, it's an 800-page book that I don't know if I'm going to get through it. Not because of this person, but because the writer, it's not well written. But the person herself was an amazing being who was in such a deep state of surrender that she just organically transmitted God's energy to people. People came up to her and they just instantly felt it, and wanted the transmission of Shakti, the transmission of energy, because it was something essential that helped them in their own lives. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask? So Rudy told me, the best a guru, a teacher can be, is the servant of God and the servant of his or her student. That's the best. It's the best you can do. And I think that is an incredible state of being because it requires complete surrender. That the servant is the highest thing you can attain on the planet Earth, which requires unbelievable depth of surrender to be a child of God, to be a child of spirit, to transmit energy that way. And I feel very blessed. I had a very great teacher who trained me in this work, and I remember, I'll never forget, I asked him a year after I met him, and I said to him, Rudy, what happened the day we met? Because it was like a miraculous thing that happened, completely unexpected. I had no idea this was going to happen. And he said to me, I saw you looking in the window of my store. It was like seeing my son lost in the universe. And I pulled you into the door, into the store. I mean, it just brought tears to my eyes that he could see that from just somebody looking in the window of his gallery. And I hopefully can do the same with all of you, I mean, my job is to just transmit God's energy. There's no favorites when it comes to these classes. There's no favorites. It's just everybody comes here to grow and connect with spirit. And I think that is an amazing hour and a half to spend, with people. And I'm very grateful for it. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask?
When you're talking about surrendering, how do you work with both efforting and surrendering? Because I feel like sometimes I'll surrender, but then I'll just get like I kind of mush a little bit.
You kind of what?
I kind of mush. Like I have a hard time being like alert and then also surrendering, I guess.
What, look, what is it we have to surrender? It's our tension. Understand, it's our ego. It's the rightness in us, that which so conditions us to be structured inside ourselves that nothing else fits in but the way we see ourselves. And that is ultimately a block that keeps us from ever connecting with creative energy in the universe. That's what you're surrendering. Tension, we're surrendering. And how do you surrender it? You learn how to bring it into the chakra below the navel. You transform it into harmony and balance, into chi. That harmony and balance gives you the strength inside that you'll never turn into mush. Trust me. I mean, it'll just open up so many creative areas in your life that you never even dreamed that they were there. But we have to get past ourselves for this to happen. And what do we got to get past? We have to get past our tension, our insecurity, our anxieties, our fear, and even more than that, the way we think life is supposed to be. Yeah. Because life is not the way we think it's supposed to be. The wonderful thing about spiritual energy, it has a logic completely its own that transcends anything we can understand. But that logic is what creates everything. That spiritual force creates everything that manifests on the earth. And our job is to just uncondition ourselves, to break down all of those habits and things, and more than anything else, anything we think that's right. Because, there's nothing worse and more congestive than to be right about what you think life is all about. All of that gets broken down inside. All of that gets transformed into chi, into energy in the third chakra. That brings harmony, it brings balance, it brings rootedness, and it brings an inner strength that one never even dreamed that they could have until you begin to build it. And then you'll never turn into mush. If you're focused there and all that stuff, that ego and all that is transformed into chi, it's a power that is amazing. And it's also a power that enables you to open the heart, keep the mind quiet, relax the throat, to be able to transmit sexual energy inside you, to activate Kundalini. It's that chi, that power that enables one to do it. And it unstructures us. It doesn't limit us to ego, to all these mechanisms we build inside ourselves, to justify our existence. That's what surrender is all about. It's getting free of the one person who keeps anyone from having a spiritual life, and that's themselves. Yeah. And that takes work. It also takes a lot of guts, because people hold on to the images they have of life as some kind of defense mechanism and some kind of justification for their existence. And I learned years ago, there's no justification for my existence except opening and allowing myself to be a servant for higher energy in the universe. I remember when I was really young, I wrote a lot. I wrote poetry, I wrote little prose poems, and I had volumes of this stuff. And I'll never forget, I told the story, but it's really true. And this writing was something I leaned upon. It was my life, And I remember one day we were up in Big Indian and there was a full moon and Rudy wanted to do a puja. And he said to me, Stuart, I want you to bring me your manuscript and we'll use your manuscript to start the puja. And I went, gulp. This was something, And I'll never forget, we went up there, I didn't bring the manuscript and he couldn't start the fire. And he really got pissed off at me. He said, I need your manuscript. I can't start the fire. So I went and got the manuscript. I gave it to him. And it was the only manuscript I had. And he started the fire. you know, and it forced me to surrender. I mean, my God, it was almost horrible how it forced me to go so deep inside myself to surrender. And I never wrote anything again for about 10 years, you know? And then I started writing again. And I've written a dozen books that were infinitely better than anything that was in that manuscript that I gave to Rudy. I had to get free of it. And he understood that. I had to get free of this crutch that somehow gave me a kind of false sense of importance. And I got free of it. And it all came back, but it came back on a level where I wasn't attached to it, but on a level that was infinitely better than anything I had done years before. And it manifested as a dozen books. So all of these things that justify our existence are just crutches we use because we haven't developed a system inside that is really strong enough to connect with higher energy, to ultimately be a servant for higher energy in the universe. I mean, I had a very tough teacher. He really, 6 years, busted my ass, I'll tell you. You know, he made me go through a lot of stuff. And every single thing I went through did nothing but make me stronger and more connected to God. Nothing. But he understood how to take me to a place where I needed to surrender and learn how to surrender in very great depth. And he always told me, don't worship me, don't build shrines to me, don't do any, just learn what I have to teach. Told me this, one day I won't be here. And if you don't learn what I have to teach, you might have to wait lifetimes for this energy to come together again so that you can learn it. So don't build shrines to me. Don't love me. I mean, I loved him more than anyone in the world, you know? Don't even love me, he told me. Just learn what I have to teach. Get your connection with God. You do that, you will free me. You will free me. And I ask the same thing of all of you. Get your connection to God. You do that, and you know, it's my karma's worked out here. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
That was a great talk.
You know, honestly, it wasn't me talking, it's just energy that comes. That's why questions are good. They bring this energy, you know. Okay, there'll be meditation on Sunday. Same time. Again, if you know people that are interested in doing this, I'm always open for new students. Very important to have new students. You know, and because you never know who's going to walk in your life, and you never know who you're going to see in the window of your store or the window of your, you know, Zoom screen, you know, who can truly learn this and become a person who can ultimately transmit God's energy and help other people. So there'll be class on Sunday, and just, you know, if they want to come, have them get in touch with me. If they don't know the exercise, I can arrange for them to learn it. And thank you. God bless you all for being here and for participating in this. And I will see everybody on Sunday. Thank you. Bless you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you, Stuart. That was a wonderful class.
Welcome.
Good night.
Good night.